morning, spooky friends. Or is it evening? Or is it, even better, later than that? Time went away when we lost the sky to fire. At least we still have the arts. Welcome to MCTV Local 13, and welcome to Sketchbook Dissections.
Sketchbook Dissections. Sketchbook Dissections. Wonderful.
Hey everybody, welcome to Sketchbook Dissections. Sorry if I smell like garbage, I haven't bathed in weeks. I'm sure none of us have. This is an adorable cover. I think I mentioned it once before. These are like, I wish they still had them. They were at Dick Blick or Blick's in the art store. And they cost like a couple dollars each, and they have like amazing paper. It's just smooth, Bristol. Awesome, and they got this cute bear, bunny, and squirrel right there on the cover. And what's not to be inspired by that? So this was the beginning of my video game adventures. So this is probably like 2012 or so, maybe 2011. So my best friend's boyfriend at the time was a like computer programmer, and he approached me with the idea of doing these video games. At the time I was trying to develop what became Bright Lights, Dark Night, so I was really swamped with book work. But he said if you could just draw a couple little things for me, I could play around and show you what we could do. The first thing I did was I made this little guy right here. This guy. His name was Almighty Man. I drew that, and I drew a cityscape background, and I gave him that, and within a week he had this character bouncing off of the walls and shooting little projectiles, and it was so cool to see my art kind of animated in this way. So that first little test actually became the first game that we pursued. The majority of this sketchbook is based around this concept, which was called Fighter Tots. Well, the original name was Fighter Tots, and eventually it was changed to Comedy of Heroes. Like a comedy of errors, but it's a comedy of heroes. I don't know. I liked Fighter Tots, even if it sounds like little tater tots that fight. But that's kind of what the concept was. So my initial thought was to have these little superhero guys, and I'd just create, like, it'd be like Pokemon. There'd be so many of them. There'd be like hundreds of these guys, and somehow you could like trade them, and you'd play this little game where you got into these fights and you'd bounce them back and forth and they'd smash into each other or something like that. I didn't have it all figured out in terms of mechanics, but that was basically the idea, was you just flick things around on the screen, bump into each other, do little pinches and zooms to use different superpowers and stuff. So my first goal was to just come up with a whole ton of these things. I wanted them to be like Pokemon or something. This guy was based off of Maverick, a high school comic book person that I made up. This is like a pro wrestler guy. A Viking. This is another one. This is Circuit. She was based off of a comic book character that I made up when I was, I don't know, probably like 12 or something, when I was a teenager. They all come from different places. This guy, this little teddy bear, would be recognizable to anybody that read Wintertown. There was this stuffed animal that had a Justin Bieber haircut. This is Lieutenant. He's like a army guy, but he's based on Lieutenant Dad, which was a character that I did for a sketch comedy public access thing. So the cool thing about Fighter Tots, let's go forward this page here. The cool thing about Fighter Tots was being able to take all of these different characters that I've made up through my entire life. I had things that went all the way back to childhood, to when I was really into comic books, into my 20s and the sketch comedy stuff, into my later characters, and I just kind of pulled them all together to kind of create this universe of these little characters. So I just got to draw them all in this style, and a lot of them were animated and had different animations that I made and different powers and stuff. This was the like the opening screen was Almighty Man flying over the city. Let's see, this is pretty cool. These are my Eric Larson clouds. So this was a lot of these. Okay, so these were like comic book covers. So as we started to develop this idea, and I started doing all these backgrounds, these different cityscapes, we came up with this idea that you would start off in this comic shop and you'd be looking at a comic rack, and you would choose which story you wanted to play by picking the comic book that looked appealing to you. So one of the covers was like the Mad Scientist, and it would have all his information, and you'd click on it and the book would open up. Here's some more characters. Here's Topaz and Sapphire. They were my shiny people comic book characters that I used for a long time. Some more characters. Here's somebody with a whole lot of hair and apparently not a lot of clothes. This was the main bad guy. I forget what his name was, but he controlled the chaos engine above the city. So there were 3 comic books, and I actually made one of the comic books in full that we'll get to. And the main concept was the chaos guy had this chaos engine that was putting out all this bad energy, and it was turning all of the heroes against each other, and everybody was fighting, and that's kind of the explanation for the game. I believe I used this cityscape for kind of a, like, I think it was like when you lose a battle, you see the person kind of falling down the city, and you're like the hero triumphant up on top or something. I was drawing a lot of cityscapes between doing Bright Lights, Dark Nights, and Fighter Tots around the same time. I was just drawing city after city. Yeah, see, here's your win animation. If you won, you're like punching the person or kicking the person, and if you lost, you're the one that's like, "Wah." So Topaz was the, I think it was like SFI or something. So that we had Almighty Man was like the primary comic book where a lot of this stuff was happening. And then you had SFI was going to be kind of like the CSI Miami type thing. They're like detectives, and that's kind of the feel of that comic book. Here's some more characters. Iron Jaw was like the jobber. He was like the weak guy that was always just getting beat up and thrown in jail. Everything tastes like metal to him because he's got this iron jaw. Some more writing stuff. The incomparable Almighty Man and his sidekick Legs. Days of Chaos crossover event. Topaz and Sapphire of the SFI. Sebastian Clifford and his muscular cat monkey. See, this was everything I loved about comic books. Like, this was supposed to feel like 1992, which is obviously, that's when I was a teenager, when I would go to the comic book store and collect all the crossovers and Spider-Man and Eric Larson and Todd McFarlane and everything. Like, yeah, it was just so cool to kind of work on a project to do that kind of stuff. This was the cover to Almighty Man. This is the main cover here. Here's Almighty Man coming at the camera. He's got Iron Jaw, legs behind him, and then big chaos guy, and here's the chaos engine at the top of the building. This is the cover to the SFI. You can't really tell that he's not like the third player. He's supposed to be the bad guy. Here's the cape of Circuit, who's big money girl who walks around with a bright red cape and a bra, apparently. 90s rules. Some more characters. This is Disco Girl. She had this disco ball that she would throw around and hit people with. This was Bunny and Bear. So we recorded like actual dialogue, like voiceovers for while they were fighting, and they would sing E Bunny and I Berry. But the ninja bunny would sit on his shoulder and would jump off and attack you and come back to his shoulder. This game was cool. Capehart's like Superman. So the mythology started to develop. And Capehart's like, he's the sellout superhero, and he's got like book deals and movies, and Almighty Man just hates him. Like, Almighty Man's this low-level superhero that wants to be Capehart, but kind of doesn't get any of the respect, and Capehart looks down on him, and he just looks at Capehart as just the ultimate sellout. This is developing the different level background. So Mega Bear, that was his name, Mega Bear and Ninja Bunny would fight near this bridge with the city, and the Capehart level was kind of an up and down scrolling one, and it was like Times Square, but like all of the different things were all about Capehart and how great he is. So that's going on in the background. There's some more cool art here. So I started doing the actual comic pages here. There's Warren and Jenny of the SFI. So the idea of the video game, once you got into the comic, it would actually open it up and it would be a story, and you'd start scrolling through these pages and it would start the story, and every 4 pages or so it would lead into a battle. You'd meet somebody. So here's the chief's yelling at them to go out and get on the case. They're angry, they're walking down the street. Let's see here, they stop and they decide to go do some karaoke. They're always doing karaoke. And here's Disco Girl. So she was like the first villain. Everybody's getting rowdy. Jenny gets drunk and passes out. Somehow they're yelling at Disco Girl. And then Disco Girl takes out her disco ball, and it's like, oh, it's on. They get their little shiny outfit, and then that leads into the first battle. So you're fighting Disco Girl. So here's what happened. So we developed an entire video game. You could play through this whole thing. And the one downside of the game is that the instinct was to just hit buttons really fast and just flicker around until you won, and it was very hard. You could strategize and try to save your powers and hit people strategically, but every time we tested it, people would just flicker things all over the page. Eventually they would win. So we actually emailed Chillingo, the company that did Angry Birds. We sent them an email and said, hey, we're developing our first game. We were wondering if you had any tips or advice. They took a look at the video game and they said, do you have a publisher? We'd be interested in publishing this. We think this is really good. So we got really excited. We had pretty much a finished game. We just wanted to kind of polish it and put it out with Chillingo and collect our paychecks. Chillingo ended up assigning us a producer that just hated the game. He didn't like it. This person wanted us to redo the entire game so that it's always in this comic style and doesn't go back and forth. Like, it just made no sense. Like, the playable part of the game was not in the comic, but he wanted everything to take place in the comic. He wanted us to basically make a new game from scratch. So we just butted heads. We just wanted to talk to the person that loved the game, that wanted to do this. Instead, we got stuck with somebody who didn't understand the project at all. After a while, we tried different things. We sent things. The guy was never happy, and eventually we got an email saying they did some spring cleaning and that they were going to let our project go. So that was our first game. 2012, 2013, 2014, those were my prime iOS game development, animation, level design. A lot of fun. A lot of cool stuff came out of it. It just, it didn't take off the way it maybe needed to in order for that to be sustainable. Anyways, I hope you learned a little something about indie, iOS, Apple gaming, and the coolness of taking all your childhood creations and making something new and expansive out of it. This sketchbook is dissected. I'll see you guys next week. Like, comment, subscribe, and just, just be my friend. I need friends. I haven't showered in weeks.
Are you still here? Oh, good. I'm so glad. I thought we lost you. We lose so many around here and in such violent manners. Please like and subscribe to ensure your safety.